Welcome back to Bull City Coordinators. This is Ben, and we have yet another first for our program. We have been doing a series of interviews of late during the off season. We have our first Duke Gang commit who has agreed to come on the show, and that is Mandela Tobin. Mandela, go ahead and say hello to everybody.
How's everyone doing? I'm just really glad to be here, and I'm really excited for this interview.
Well, we look forward to speaking with you here for a little bit. I want to get a little bit into your background, give you a chance to introduce yourself to everybody. Why don't you tell us what got you into playing football?
To be honest, I didn't really come into football being serious. My entire life, before high school, I played baseball. The only time I played youth football was about 2 to 3 years. I played some flag football, but again, it wasn't serious. And then 2 years of youth football. When I was playing with the bigger kids because in my grade, I was too big for my grade. So that's why I was going against all the sixth graders when I was in third grade. But besides that, the rest was just all baseball. So when I came into high school, I basically came almost not knowing anything about football, or at least the rules. I knew, of course, the bare bottom minimum, but I didn't really know the deeper rules or techniques. So freshman year, I just joined because I thought it was a high school tradition. I was naive and young and dumb back then. I'm still young, but I'm getting slowly moving away from the dumb part. But after freshman year, I realized that I can really do well because I was doing well against some top teams like Cathedral against their freshman team, and that was back when they had Elijah Lloyd on their team who ran he was a 4.34 as a freshman, and I did very well in that game and in the rest of the games as well. So the coaches saw it, they saw the potential. So sophomore year, I started all 11 games on varsity, and after that, the rest is history. All the offers that I've been committing to Duke.
All right, and I want to ask you a little bit about that. You're in San Diego, is that right?
Yes, correct.
Okay, how are you going to handle leaving that great weather behind to come across country to Durham?
Oh man, San Diego is beautiful. I know growing up, you have almost sunshine every day, and that's why so many people like moving here or coming here on vacation. But I think it's definitely time for change because I don't always want to experience something every time, every day. And I know, but I've been hearing Durham's kind of a mix of everything. And, when it's wintertime, it gets cold. When it's summertime, it gets hot. Because I remember I went to North Carolina about 2 years ago, and we were visiting some family friends, and the humidity was just off the charts. It was worse than Nigeria. So that really told me what was going on, So it's definitely an exciting experience. So I'm really excited to experience the rest of the weather as well.
Well, drink lots of water and invest in some winter clothes. That's my advice. Before I get into your recruitment and your college, tell me a little bit more about your baseball. What position did you play, and who's your team?
So, youth baseball. I played third base, outfielder most of the time, and then sometimes first base. And I would even try to strive for pitcher as well. But like I said, I was bigger than most of the kids anyway, and I was known to be, one of the strongest, if not the strongest hitters out there. And I remember my dad. He would basically drag me out to go do some extra conditioning. But basically, after that, excuse me, sorry, my car is coming on.
You got some crazy drivers out there.
Oh yeah, big time. But yeah, like I was saying though, I was known to be one of the bigger hitters, and I played for. We called them the Padres because that was our team. So it was under the MLB team, and then it would go down to RPLL. So that was what it was called. So and I worked my way up all the way up to minor A, and then then I forgot the other league, but it was the highest in youth baseball or Little League. So, and then I came into high school and only played freshman year, and I hit a couple bombs, but I kind of called it quits, especially with football coming around. I was like, I like football more, so that's where it went.
You still root for the Padres?
I do. I mean, they did very well this past season, but even before that, I was still a fan. Growing up with them, even though they've been kind of trash, but they're definitely doing well, especially with the team. So I'm happy.
Yeah, I sympathize with trash teams. I rooted for the Cubs as a kid and to have stuck with them. So I understand your pain on that one. I want to switch gears a little bit, talk about your recruitment process to Duke. Start off telling us a little bit about what other schools were recruiting you.
So, yeah, other schools were definitely recruiting me at, like, defensive end, defensive tackle, or, like, a hybrid setup. I know SCSU, even though they didn't offer me, they were saying I can play nose tackle for them. And then Nebraska was saying D-end. This was back, of course, before I committed. And Kansas was saying D-end. And there are some other schools that were saying D-tackle as well. I think Kansas State, they said D-tackle. But that was kind of the mix. For Duke, they see me as probably a D-end, but they could see me as a D-tackle, and I honestly wouldn't mind playing D-tackle, because to be disruptive in the inside, that would be a nightmare for opposing offenses. So I don't mind that at all. But being on the edge as well, that's where, that's like the fancy D-end or defensive lineman, So that's all.
Well, when did Duke get involved in the recruiting process, and what schools did it come down to?
So Duke they kind of came in and out. I remember I was talking to Coach Singler, but it wasn't really serious. And when we would text, he wouldn't, respond for like a couple of weeks or even months. And I was like, I didn't really know what they were at that point. But basically around, I would say maybe August, September time, the Duke recruiting page followed me. And after that, the coaches started trickling in with texting me, more consistently. And then they were sending me edits. And then as time went on, after that, like about 2-3 weeks after they followed me, that's when I got the offer. So that's why it was such a crazy experience, especially that I posted my top 5 back then. So it was a little bit after my top 5.
Yeah, Duke wasn't originally in that, were they?
No, they weren't, because obviously I didn't have offers from them. So, but if they did back then, I would have had them in my top 5 for sure. Just because of what they have to offer.
Tell us a little bit about that. What made you choose Duke, and what did you like about the Duke process?
Man, let's just start with the academics. They are top notch in that category. They know how to really push their students to be not great, but be the best. And they're in the top 10 or tied the top 10 in the world for universities. I forgot the list that it was a part of, but it was a very highly respected list, so that's why I was very excited to see that offer, and that's what my family thought as well. The academics are just great, especially with me trying to go into business. I know they have a great business school as well. But besides that, just seeing Victor DiMukherjee and Chris Ruth and et cetera, just people like that, that tells me Coach Albert is doing a great job on the defensive line side, because those 2 guys and a couple others are being, regarded as some, high priority draft pick, and that's why I'm so excited to be a part of a team that has great academics, but also great coaching to be successful. And Coach Cutcliffe is a great coach as well. Meeting him with my parents, it was a great experience. So I'm just really happy and confident with my decision.
Well, I think Coach Albert's probably the best hire Coach Cutcliffe has made in his time at Duke. I mean, he's made some very good defensive linemen, but to stay on that a little bit, what do you think from a football perspective is the biggest challenge for you going from San Diego to the ACC?
Oh, I mean, from the school I played at here in San Diego, we played some solid teams for sure. Not maybe like not in the best in the nation or not like Matters A or anything, but there's some good teams in San Diego that are still kind of respected throughout Southern California or even California in general. And of course, the only team that's like regarded nationally is Cathedral Catholic or even maybe Saints or St. Augustine, but we don't play them. But the only time we play Cathedral was freshman and I think sophomore year too. So that was the only time. But to transition from that to the ACC, I would definitely say it's a big jump, but it's not a jump that's impossible because you've seen many other athletes that come from schools even smaller from mine, that have been very, very successful in like conferences like the SEC. San Diego has a lot of talent. Even, for example, Chris Olave at Ohio State came from Mission Hills. Even though Mission Hills is still good, that's a big jump from there to the Big Ten and playing at a nationally ranked team like Ohio State. So I don't think it's an impossible run, but it's definitely a run that I would definitely have to prepare myself to the maximum to play against teams like Clemson or Florida State or, North Carolina.
And earlier I had indicated that my cat had shown up. Now my dog is down here. So you're the hot ticket item in the house right now. Tell us a little bit about what you want to accomplish at Duke, what your goals are, and what you want to do in your time in Durham.
I just really want to make sure I secure my degree first. That's the biggest thing because I know football is great, and that's definitely still a main priority in my life. But without the degree, I can't really go anywhere if I want to have a successful job after football. Because football can only go so far, and so many things can happen. But to have a Duke degree and not worrying about student debt on top of that, I mean, what else can you ask for in life? Like, that's just perfect. So, but I'm going to make sure I make the most out of it. I want to make sure I, of course, secondly, have a great football career and hopefully get drafted highly where I can have another great NFL career as well, and I just want to make sure I have a lasting impact at the university, hopefully, and, off the field as well. And then, of course, just to make new friends and, hopefully meet my future wife or girlfriend or whoever, because college is usually the place where you make all those things. So I'm just really excited to just be at Duke and, North Carolina. I heard there's some good barbecue. That's one of my pet peeves for sure.
Fact check true. Absolutely true.
Yep. So that's why I really want to check out those places. But,
so the South Carolina barbecue is good. Virginia barbecue, stay away from it. All right.
I got that. I will.
North Carolina and South Carolina. Now, what about for the football team? What do you want to accomplish on the field?
I really want to play as a true freshman, like even start as a true freshman, and then even, make some all-conference honors stuff. My goal is to be a first-team All-ACC, hopefully my freshman year if I could do that or make it to the, what's it called? I forgot what it's called, but it's for true freshmen. Make the first team of that. Or even if it doesn't happen, just later down the road in my career, I can make first team ACC or, just like AP first team, All-American, I guess, just across the country. That's my goal. And just to really cement myself as one of the best defensive lineman that's ever come out of Duke or ever come out of college if I can too. So if I can set my priorities high like that and set my expectations high like that, even if I don't make those things, the things that I have accomplished are still pretty high because those are some monumental priorities and expectations I'm trying to set myself up to.
What about for the team?
For the team, I want to make sure that I can be a good leader as well, especially on the D-line. I want to make sure that we can have Duke to be one of the best in the ACC. I want to make sure that I don't have any of my teammates start to slack off and start to, just not try as hard or not give all effort. I want to just really change the narrative with Duke because I know Duke is known to be a basketball school, and I know they're on the rise for football, but I want to, exceed expectations football-wise and maybe even make Duke become known for football more than basketball if we could, which would be a very tall task, but I don't care how tall the tasks are. If it's possible, it's possible, So I want to just be a great leader, change the narrative and just have fun too. That's all.
Well, we're all rooting for that. As fans, we get frustrated, but we want you guys to win. So let's switch gears from football to your personal life. What do you like to do in your spare time?
Well, besides football and all that, I guess I like working out, even though it's still kind of football related, but it's more of a stress reliever as well. If I have something on my mind, it decreases my stress. I work at a grocery store or Ralph's, it's a grocery store. I'm just a bagger and all that. I really like music. I really like, like some lo-fi hip-hop or some lo-fi, like jazz sometimes, but I mainly listen to some rap and all that. But I really like exploring as well. I really like going around San Diego and just seeing the different parts I've never been to. South San Diego or Southeast San Diego is really where all the good things about San Diego are. For example, Mount Helix. That's like a staple in an area called La Mesa here in San Diego, and you can see the entire city from there. And I don't care how far the drive is, as long as it's not crazy. If it's exciting, I would go there. I always go with my friends, my best friends, and doing all that. So, and of course, I'm a typical kid. I sometimes play video games, but I'm slowly drifting away from video games at this point because I'm getting too old for it. So I'm not going to be, hopefully, I'm not going to be like, a typical college student or football player, and I'll be playing Fortnite and all that because that's not me. But I do sometimes, if I have time, I do play it, just to, kill some time or just if I feel like it, But yeah, that's pretty much what I do. But, I'm trying to broaden my range of things to do. But right now it's kind of small and secluded. But you know what? Hey, I'm going to college to Duke. That's all I'm excited about.
Well, if you work at Ralph's, you'll feel right at home in Kroger. I don't know if you've been in a Kroger yet, but they're basically the same store. When we went to San Diego around Christmas time several years ago, we walked into a Ralph's to get some groceries, and I said, God, this layout looks really familiar. This feels like a Kroger back home. And then we went to buy something and had the Kroger label on the bottom of it. So if there's any in Durham or in the surrounding area, it'll make you feel at home. But tell me, I saw in one of your interviews you were interested in photography. Is that right?
Oh, yes. I totally forgot about that. I love photography as well. Photography is such an exciting and nice thing to do as well, because you can really express yourself through the pictures without even writing anything or saying anything. It's just through the picture. I'm more of a landscape. I like, beautiful landscape pictures or sometimes close-up.
It's real
pictures as
easy
well.
for you though out in San Diego to find beautiful landscapes. You don't
Oh,
you don't have to go very
tell me
far.
about it. Tell me about it. It is beautiful out here, so it's definitely not very hard to get some great pictures out here. But I also like some close-up pictures or some self-portraits as well. I can be a little creative as well, and you know what? Like it's kind of like my hobby. And if I really think about it, I can have it as a side hobby when I, get a little bit older and I can make some money off it because, I can have just a small shop, where I can do some professional photography and just sell some side money from it, from my main job. So
You know,
that's definitely something I've been thinking about for sure.
yeah, I think Terry Crews, when he played in the NFL, he made a lot of money doing drawings and illustrations for other players on his teams, and it kind of supplemented his income. So that's definitely something you should keep in your back pocket and stay on top of. Now, are you a big reader? Are there any authors you like to read? Anybody that you found particularly influential so far in your life?
Well, yeah, I mean, of course, my parents are, that's everyone's, influence as well. I guess most people have their parents as an influence. But I always think about my heritage, being Nigerian and, having my family back home. I always visit them and I see how they're living and I want to make sure they can get out of situations like that, you know. And just besides that, being a Nigerian, if you've seen throughout just the entire world, it doesn't matter where we are. Of course, mostly sports, that's where we are. But we're not just physically gifted. We're also mentally gifted as well. We're very smart. We have some pretty good doctors, lawyers, you name it, And that's how proud I am. We're not above any race, but we can definitely say that we set our expectations very, very high, and we never want to back down from any challenge. And that's what I always remember as well. That's just keeping my heritage proud and keeping my parents proud and everyone that knows me proud as well. So that's my main motivation.
Yeah.
Motivation.
Well, and let me ask you about that. You told me before we got started, and I saw in some of your other interviews that your parents and your grandparents had immigrated here from Nigeria, and I'm just curious that experience that they went through being immigrants coming to a new country, a new place. How has that shaped your worldview? And I know you're still young and you're still absorbing a lot of stuff, but what from that have you taken as an influence or something to always keep in the back of your mind as you go through your day-to-day life?
Well, yeah. I mean, for my parents, they immigrated here, but for my grandparents, they stayed where they were in Nigeria. They were the ones that sent them over here, basically. But just besides that, just throwing that to the side, how they grew up here and how they influenced me is definitely great. My dad has been here for about 40 years now. He came in about the 80s, late 70s, early 80s. And my mom has been here since 2001, so almost 20 years now. So, or actually, it's actually 20 years. She's been here for a while, just like my dad. And growing up, they would tell me stories of how, they're just bare bottom Nigerian, what's the word for it? I guess you can say their mentality. It was definitely odd to Americans back then. So they would tell me a lot of funny stories of, how they would be in some odd situations. Like, for example, my dad, there's some gang that was trying to, come up on him, and they were like, "Hey, you want to try to get jumped?" And my dad was like, "Oh, you want to jump? Yeah, we can jump." So, so you told me stories about that, and but besides that, they told me that having all the things here you have in America, we have it easy, and we should not like never take for granted for that. Because if you take things like, food, running water, all those things for granted, and that's when you can really start to go down some deep holes that you don't want to go. So they say take advantage of everything you have here in America, and never, ever, ever give up, because if you give up, that's where it ends. That's it, My dad, basically, his story is just great because he came to America 17 years old, $200, and now he's like, basically my stepbrother says he's like a millionaire now from a realtor, even though he doesn't really show it, but he's made himself into a great man. And same with my mom. She's done the very same, so it's just about never giving up and taking advantage of what you have here in America, because I've seen the things that, happen in Nigeria, and it really humbles me to make sure that I never take things for granted and never give up. So that's all.
Okay. I'm always looking to broaden my bookshelf. Are there any good Nigerian authors or stories or biographies you'd recommend?
To name them off the top of my head, I don't really remember because, for me, I don't really read books like that, but I still, look up on articles online. But I wouldn't really say any books, but some people, I would say for sure, would be like, for example, and I know this is very recent, his name is Oluwole Bitiku. He came from Nigeria, I think it's like 2016, and he just came as this high school recruit, had no idea about football, and he came in, and after that, like after a year or two of playing, he became a 5-star recruit and went straight. And now he's in the league right now, and I remember when I was trying to learn football and I read his story, I was like, wow, how did he do that? Like, that tells me I can do what he did. And he came from basically nothing, and I have these things that I have. So that really inspired me as well. But I think every Nigerian person that's played football or any other sport you've heard, is definitely a person I say is Christian Okoye. That guy.
Yeah. I grew up, I remember him real well, yeah.
Big time. I mean, he was so strong, he was just so strong, and he really showed why they call him the Nigerian Nightmare, He was 260 pounds running like a 4.3 or 4.4. Like, how do you do that? That's crazy.
Yeah, you probably didn't play this video game, but when I was young, Tecmo Super Bowl, Okoye was a pretty formidable opponent if the guy you were playing against had the Chiefs. That was something you had to watch out for. It wasn't quite as dominant as Bo Jackson on those games, but he was pretty good. And he was a big – I remember kids when I was young, I mean, that was one of the favorite – running backs, one of the favorite NFL players. He was a special talent, that's for sure. So tell us though, what do you read? You said earlier, you talked about photography, some of your other interests. You talked about the different Nigerian Americans that you have kept up with and learned about. What do you read in whatever spare time you may have?
Usually I don't really, pick up books and read, but I'm more of like a technological person, so I go up online and I read various stories about, people's lives. If I have to remember off my top of my head,
No. So tell me so are you interested more in like social history type things, stories of individual people? Do you like podcasts? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's kind of more like maybe podcasts and definitely some, I would say some interviews as well. Of course, Mandela. That's literally where my name came from. That's what my parents named me, and I always like to go, sometimes online, and I even have a book that I read actually. Sometimes just saying that actually, I read up on him, and I, try to think to myself and pick up of what he's done in his life so that I can replicate it in my life as well, because he was such a great leader. Like he spent 27 years in prison for something that was right. That showed just, the dedication, the amount of time he took to really make sure South Africa and Africa as a whole had no segregation or racism in it. So that's just one example. And then, you know what? There's just a couple books that are coming to my mind now. One of them was a book by Lou Holtz. He was a great college football coach. I remember he coached William and Mary, if I'm correct, and also Notre Dame. I think he's more known for Notre Dame than William and Mary.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. But when I read his book, I really picked up on the things about how you can get underestimated and be like an underdog, but that doesn't matter. I remember I think they were playing Florida. I think this was like in the 90s when they had like a bowl game, and like some waitress or waiter came up to him when he's like in a restaurant. He put his bowl of cereal in front of him, and the waiter was like, you see in this bowl? You see, cereal belongs in this bowl. Guess what doesn't belong in the bowl? And Lou Holtz was like, what? And he said, Notre Dame. And he said in his book, that was the time when he's like, I'm going to prove these people wrong, and they actually beat them. So that's the crazy part about it. And I've picked up so many tips on how to stay courageous and strong, and of course, a never give up mentality. So just a couple of those books, just thinking to my mind, I always read those books, or not always, but I sometimes pick them up, in my spare time, and I always like, reading them.
Yeah, one book I read about leadership and football and the intersection of the two was by Bill Walsh. It was called The Score Takes Care of Itself, which I think you might enjoy. It talks a lot about his football career, how he motivated players, kind of the struggles that he overcame. It was good. Now, but he also has a book specifically about football and his time in football, how to run a team, which if you can find a copy of it, apparently it is like the Bible for football coaches. It did not sell very well, so getting a copy of it is about impossible without spending $800 or so. So, if I would recommend either or both of those to you. I think you might enjoy them, given what some of your interests are, and I do think, especially in what you're doing, what you're going into. Reading about culture building and leadership will definitely be helpful for you and help you in your career going forward. But all right, so I've just gotta go ahead and just get your thoughts on this upcoming football season. I tell you, I'm a good bit older than you are. I'm 39. I've been watching Duke football for as long as I can remember. This last season was for fans. It was painful. What are you guys hoping to accomplish next season in 2021?
I definitely think, with this incoming class that we have as well, I think we can really change things. I know the 2 years before that, they did pretty good at 8-5. If I'm correct.
Oh yeah, no, that season I remember that one real well. They were 8-5. It felt like they lost somewhere around 30% of available the available players, and I think if you totaled up the total number of minutes lost, it came out to like one full third of the season. It was crazy. Wow. I mean that was a really, really good team that just couldn't stay healthy. I mean, that one was hard at times for us, because I remember, Duke led Clemson at the end of the first quarter that year. And you're just sitting there thinking, oh, if only this team were healthy. If only this team were healthy. But that was a rough season for a fan. But you're right, they were 8-5 that year.
Yeah, they were, and that's why I saw that, and I was like, this is why Duke can be one of probably the best teams in the nation, because we have all the pieces. We have a great facility. We have a great school. If we need to stay healthy, hopefully we do. I know Duke has a very, very good medical school, and they're training their students to be great doctors and etc. And also, we have great coaches as well, And as long as we get the key pieces in and we prepare, that's the biggest thing. And I think that's a lot of things that people forget about is preparation is key to being successful. You can't just walk into a weight room and just bench 400 pounds, on your first day. You got to take months, maybe even a year or two, to even get to that point, It's all about preparation, and it's all about making sure that you're giving your best effort. And with this incoming class, I don't think I've seen such an athletic offensive lineman. I think his name is Andrew, if I'm correct. Andrew or Aaron. Just one of those examples that just tells me that we can really change the perspective of Duke and really make sure that we can be one of the best teams in the country. And I can be kind of confident about that. Maybe even fully confident, because with what we have, I don't think there's anything that can stop us as long as we prepare well and as long as we're responsible and we put as much effort as we can do. We're in the ACC. It's not a Group 5 team or even less. We're in the ACC. So we're a Power 5 team. And that tells me that we have the things to do to be one of the best. That's all.
Well, the one thing that you guys are going to need to do, and I've been talking since I started doing interviews on the site here, I've been talking to some former players. You all have to demand accountability from each other on every play. And that goes back to leadership, culture building. Another book you might want to read is Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor. And he talks a lot in there about how to motivate people. I mean, he's not using that word, but that's what he's getting at.
Yeah.
And you're 100% right. You got a great medical staff. You got a great facility. You got everything there to succeed. It's a little harder at Duke for obvious reasons. Tradition, history, academics are one big thing. But I remember being at a game where Steve Spurrier, the coach from in the late 80s, they were honoring the 1989 team that was co-conference champions with Virginia. And he talked about the power of belief. And he said this team, when they were 1-3, never stopped believing in themselves. And then we won, 7 straight. And if you guys can believe in it, and you can execute it, you can prepare, you can go out every week and do it, it can happen. And I do think you have tools there. You got a good offensive line. You got a really good running back in Mateo Durant. You've got all kinds of weapons at receiver. I don't know if Noah Gray's coming back or not, but even if he's not, you've got some good tight ends coming up below him. I think you got some good young linebackers. It's a little harder for me to get a good sense of the rest of the defense because there were just so many injuries this year, and then the D-line's turning over. But I think you've got tools there to succeed, and if that O-line can keep Gunnar Holmberg up and healthy, you guys are going to have a shot. We're looking forward to it.
And I'm telling you, it's pure facts. I mean, if you have the pieces to be successful, why not take advantage of it, And especially with me, I really want to be the best, and I want that to spread mentally throughout the entire team. So that's the biggest thing with me.
Well, we're rooting for you, and like I said, you guys have got to demand accountability from each other. You got to hold each other accountable, and you got to go out and execute. And one thing to keep in mind is, in my field as a lawyer, a lot of times what I'm doing is leading up to something big. So you got to do a bunch of small things and then do the big thing. So when you're on defense, try to make a play, not always try to make the big play. Do you understand what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
Exactly. Play within the system, do the little things right, and then you get a couple of bounces your way and some good stuff can happen. But hey, Mandela, we're rooting for you. I appreciate you coming on. Hold on for a second while I stop the recording, but because I want to talk to you just for a little bit more. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for listening. We hope you keep coming back. We've got some other good interviews planned. I think this was a great talk here with Mandela, part of Duke Gang 2021, who hopefully will be leading the Blue Devils to some great things over the next 4 years.